All right. Well, welcome back. Hope you guys enjoyed whatever meal it was, snack, tea, or otherwise that you were enjoying. I know we did.
Yep.
Just as a real quick introduction again, that is Susan Ibach. I am Christopher Harrison. And we're going to get moving now with Module 2, something that's going to be near and dear to my heart, which is the features for new web developers. Some of you may recognize from earlier, I actually did the quick start on MVC with John Galloway. Susan, you have a little more hair than John does. And so needless to say...
What you're talking about.
Just a little bit. But needless to say that this is something that I spend quite a bit of time with, and I really like a lot of the changes that Microsoft has made, not only inside of Visual Studio, but just with the overall API and the environment. So let's actually get right on into it. And the first thing that I want you to notice, and this is something that we sort of got a little bit of in prior versions of Visual Studio, was this one ASP.NET that MVC builds on top of ASP.NET, that a lot of times I'll hear people say, you've got classic ASP.NET when they mean web forms, and then they'll say, the new ASP.NET when they're meaning MVC. But it really is all one ASP.NET. That what we're going to have is we're going to have our websites and we're going to have our services. And what I want you to notice on the websites here is that everything falls under that one main category. So you're going to notice that, yes, we do have MVC and we do still have our web forms over there. But we also have web pages, so that way if you're looking for kind of a little bit more straightforward of a design, you can go in and just create web pages. You'll also notice that you've got single page apps, use a little bit of JavaScript magic to do everything in one fell swoop. And then you'll notice over here on the services side that we've got both Web API as well as SignalR. All of those are part of ASP.NET. Now, one of the biggest questions that I wind up getting whenever I'm doing anything really on ASP.NET is, well, should we do MVC and should we do web forms? Now, personally, I'm an MVC guy. It's just really where I feel much more comfortable, where I feel more at home. But there is still something to be said about web forms. After all, I mean, it's nice to be able to just drag and drop out of control, hit the little smart tag, say I want a brand new data source, type in your little query, next, finish, put a little check next to enable paging, a little check next to enable sorting, and poof, it's up and running without me having to do anything else. That's wonderful. But if I'm really looking to create a richer interface, if I'm looking for more responsiveness with JavaScript, if I'm looking for, frankly, I think more flexibility, I really want to get into MVC. So you'll notice that you've got that bit of a crowbar separation between the two environments. And in the past, while yes, you could sort of get them both to work inside the same project, now what you wind up having to do is, or now what you can do, let me put the sentence that way, is actually just create the project. And if you want MVC, you're going to put a little check next to MVC. And if you want web forms, you're just going to put a little check next to web forms, and you're done. So that way you don't have to make any decisions up front. You can mix and match as needed, that you can use the appropriate tool for the job. Because after all, as that old saying goes, that if the only tool that you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And there are times when MVC is appropriate, there are times when web forms is appropriate, and sometimes it's all going to be inside the exact same project.
So it's going to make life a lot easier for all those people sort of just getting, especially those who are still trying to grasp and really master the MVC space. For those already comfortable in MVC, it really wasn't so much of an issue. But
exactly.
For those trying to make that crossover and get a handle on it, it's a nice way to work into it.
Exactly. Yeah, and so you can put all of that into the same project. So those parts, maybe you've got an old web forms, and you can much more easily now add MVC to that.
Where it makes the most sense and where you're going to get the most value.
Exactly. Yep. Now, one of the other big things that Visual Studio did when they introduced MVC is, as part of the template, it automatically created a site and a structure for you. And it was based on a template specifically for MVC. And you've probably seen it in a lot of different places. The Azure websites use the same one. The problem, though, is it really wasn't based on a good standard. This is where Bootstrap comes into play. That Bootstrap is now that default web template inside Visual Studio 2013. Now, Bootstrap in and of itself was actually created by Twitter, and it's in a lot of ways become like a de facto standard for websites. That every time you go to different websites and you see a lot of those same buttons, that are green or red or blue, or in particular, if you fire up your mobile device, and I put my phone away from earlier, but if you fire up your mobile device and you go to a web page, chances are on the little web page, you'll notice up at the top, there'll be kind of 3-4 little lines there, and if you tap on that, it will actually bring down a menu. All of that is typically being done by Bootstrap.
And so yeah, as I said, and the big thing about that is anytime you're using those sort of de facto templates, that means anything you're designing, obviously for your users, is going to be easier for them to get in and start adopting because it's an interface they're already familiar with. So anytime we can keep a consistent look and feel, it's just a little easier for people to get into it.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And then bring that right back to the developers. It makes it easier for us, not only A, because in that way it's going to be that same standard, the same set of classes and so forth, but also B, to go one step further with this. What's nice is it is sort of a de facto standard. So if you fire up Bing, if you fire up Internet Explorer and just go in and do a search, you'll notice that there are a lot of different tools, there are a lot of different templates that are available for you based on Bootstrap. So if you're looking for easier customization, you'll notice that there's a lot of capabilities that are all based around Bootstrap. So let's actually get in and take a look here at creating a project inside of Visual Studio. So let me have PowerPoint beat me up again.
I was going to say, well, we're already off to a flying fun with PowerPoint session.
There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and come back over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my existing solution here. And let me just add in a brand new project. There we go. And I'm going to go under Web. Now, right away, I want you to notice something's very different here. That in the past, at this point, it would then prompt me, okay, do you want MVC?
Yeah, you had to pick right away. I'm like, what do I want to do, MVC or web forms?
Exactly.
Yeah, I got in here, I thought I forgot to load it properly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you kind of look, wait a minute, there was supposed to be something else. And yeah, exactly, it's now gone. Now you will notice that if I go under Visual Studio 2012, that, if you feel maybe a bit more comfortable, there you go, they're all still there.
I'm ready to evolve.
All right, excellent. So then let's go and let's grab web, and there's our ASP.NET web application, and I'm going to go ahead and set this up with a hello MVC. Actually, you know what? I'm going to do this. Let's do running MVC.
I was just going to say, in honor of our, being from Canada, can I have a bonjour MVC? We'll work on that one next.
Well, yeah. We'll work on that. Yeah.
All right.
All right. But in the meantime, so what I'm going to do here is hit OK. And now you're going to notice that I get this brand new option here. And this is now where it's going to prompt me for the template. And you will notice that if you want to create a Facebook app, if you want to create a single page app, you can go in and choose that inside of there. You'll also notice that we do still have empty. Now, regardless of which option it is that you choose, what you're going to notice down here at the very bottom is that you can choose to add in the folders, add in the core references for whatever types of applications you want to build. So if you want a web forms app, it's very simple. Put a checkbox next to web forms. You want an MVC, put a checkbox next to MVC. It really is just that simple. You'll also notice, let's say I choose MVC up top and I'm going, hey, you know what? I know there's going to be a couple of spots where I want web forms. Not a problem. Just go ahead and put a little check next to web forms.
Nice.
Now, I'm going to highlight right over here. You'll notice change authentication. I'm actually going to have a slide coming up in a couple of minutes here on the authentication mechanisms that are now available, introduce the identity system. But since I'm here, let me just highlight real quickly the little option. And you'll notice that if you want to just, no authentication or maybe add that on later, you can do that there. If you are going to be integrating maybe any form of Azure or local Windows accounts, you've got those options down towards the bottom. And then you'll notice that you've got individual user accounts, which is that new identity capability. And we'll get in and take a look at that in a couple of minutes. But at the very least, I just wanted to highlight that for right now. So let me go in, hit OK, and hit OK. And moving your mouse makes it go faster.
I always wanted a crank on the side of my computer, so whenever I saw those, I always wondered if I want like a fake crank, so I can just feel like it makes it go.
There you go. See, I want the return of the turbo button.
Yes,
You know?
the turbo button. That's what we used to have on our computers.
Exactly. We're just going to keep dating ourselves here. That's all we're going to keep doing.
Memories of writing basic code. You know, I actually ran out of memory on the first program I ever wrote. I wrote a choose your own adventure that literally said, you are in a hallway, do you want to turn right or left? If left, go to 40. And I ran out of memory because, of course, I had the 16K expanded memory.
Absolutely. I remember a Byte magazine program that I wrote years and years and years ago that you had to use the question mark instead of print as the shortcut because, again, you would run out of memory otherwise. Okay. In any event, we're done reminiscing, and now you'll notice
back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Exactly. So first thing that you're going to notice here is there's my little application. And so you'll notice it tells me, hey, this is what you've got. And then you'll also notice right over here that it's got a lot of great links if you're ever not sure about what it is that you could potentially do inside of your application. That one of the things that's happened over years is, of course, just web technologies have become a lot more mature. And with that maturity, there's become just so many different moving parts that you now have to know. So you have to know things like SignalR, Web API, different JavaScript libraries, Knockout or AngularJS or jQuery or whatever it is. And so trying to figure out, what's a good starting point? How do I get more information on all of this really can become a bit of a challenge. So if we come back and we take a look at the start slide here, what you're going to notice right here is that they've actually got a lot of great links. So if you're not sure about, for example, how to change your site's theme, or you're not sure about, let's say, Web API or something that I really like, SignalR, all you have to do is just click on the little link and poof, now you'll notice that there's a little intro onto SignalR. And you'll notice there is now a SignalR 2. It's changed a lot of things behind the scenes. Yep. The actual APIs themselves don't change a whole heck of a lot, but the behind the scenes does. Shameless plug, I actually wrote up a 3-part blog post, blog.geektrainer.com on SignalR. It's still based on 1.0. You actually just have to change one little line of code to make it work with 2.0. But in any event, so you'll actually notice right there, see? Upgrading projects to 2.0. There you go. And that's how you could go in and do it. That you'll notice it's just a couple little changes that need to be made to update that to 2.0. So in any event, okay. So let me, by the way, little Visual Studio trick here. If you're not already familiar with this, right-click on a tab, close all but this. Relatively new, close all documents. Love that. So let me just do a real quick close all documents, and I'm not going to save my changes to program. All right, so now let me go ahead and kind of explore a little bit of what we've got going on here. You are going to notice right over here on the right-hand side that we do have all of our jQuery libraries. And you're going to notice that we've got Bootstrap as well and everything that's needed for there. You're also going to notice references.js, which, by the way, if you do want IntelliSense for a particular library, all you have to do is just add that into references.js. The easiest way to do it is just open it up and just drag and drop the script that you want over there. So let me just, I know it's already in there, but I can just drag it over again just to see. And you'll notice, sure enough, that pops up. That's all it takes to enable that IntelliSense there. So very easy for me to do that. You'll also notice, and let me go ahead and kick on over to here, that if I right-click and I go to my Manage NuGet Packages, and I'm just going to do this kind of real quick and give this just a moment. What I want to highlight just kind of real briefly here is that Bootstrap is now into version 3. You are going to notice that chances are you'll have to update that, and that's of course where you just simply fire up NuGet and away you go from inside of there. And so you'll notice if I scroll on down, there's my little Bootstrap, and then you can just go ahead and update that to be 3.0. Just hit update and then let Bootstrap do its thing. Cool, just like that. All right. So now let me open up my little view here, my little index. Come here, there we go. And you'll notice that there's our little index. Let me go ahead and just Control F5. There we go. Go ahead and open that up, let it build, let it build, let it build. Move your mouse, makes it go faster.
Always does, absolutely.
Yep. And There we go. Don't show that message again. So there is, looks very similar to Twitter, my little page. You'll also notice, by the way, this is one of the great advantages to using Bootstrap, is that as I resize this.
Yes, and this is more and more important. I mean, with all the different sizes of devices we're supporting out there, a huge requirement to be able to support these different screen size, with the tablets to giant dual monitors.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, I've got better things to do with my time than to try and figure out, okay, well, how's this going to display on this tablet? How's this going to display on this phone? I mean, after all, it's football season. You know, the Chargers are playing. I've got other things to do. And so it's very nice that Bootstrap takes care of this in a lot of ways for me. The other real quick thing that I just want to mention, there we go, go to getbootstrap.com, that you'll notice right inside of here, under the Get Started, that they give you a lot of different options or different pieces of information inside of there, all the different things that you could do to maybe disable things, some of the different examples that are available. If you open up the components in particular, this is now where it's going to start to tell you all of the different options and items that you can create. So if you're wanting to, for example, set up your thumbnails, if you're wanting to work with progress bars, that all of that capability is actually just baked right in with Bootstrap, making your life a whole lot easier. If you decide, hey, you know what, I want to go in and customize things, you'll notice that there's your customize option. So you can actually just go in, start scrolling down, find the different colors that you want to go in and change. And then finally, let me just scroll back up towards the very top, you'll notice that I've got the download. So when you go in, you make all your changes, you go ahead and save that. And again, if you fire up Bing, just do a search for Bootstrap. There's all sorts of different tools that will help you customize all of this.
Which is, and anything that lets me generate it for me and change a few options and I can do more copy and paste always makes me happy.
The best code in the world is code that's already written. True story. Okay, now, that being said, Bootstrap is fantastic. But we do still have a couple little challenges here that regardless of whatever it is that you're using, browser compatibility issues still exist. They still plague developers.
You spend so much of your time, you know, you're like, oh, look at this great new JavaScript feature, and then you go and run it, and you're testing everything's great, and then you discover, oh, wait, that doesn't work on the latest edition of whether it's Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox. I mean, you're just constantly battling with different browsers.
Exactly, exactly. Well, let's not leave out Opera, you know, for the half dozen Opera users in the world. Sorry. But in any event, you know, I don't want to have to always worry about that. This is where BrowserLink comes into play. That what BrowserLink will do is with the touch of one button, it'll automatically refresh every single browser that I'm using to view my site. So just simply hit that one little button and poof, everything else will be updated. If you are curious, behind the scenes, it actually uses a little bit of SignalR magic to send the signal over to the browser. Now that's sort of challenge number one, that Bootstrap doesn't handle everything for me. The other challenge with, well, Bootstrap and every other library that's out there is after a while, it really starts to become a challenge to remember every little class, every little option that's available to us. So wouldn't it be nice if we could get, you know, a little bit more support? So let's get in and take a look at some of the different IntelliSense features for CSS. The IntelliSense features for JavaScript, you'll notice there's a lot of baked-in support for some of the more common libraries. And you'll also notice some really cool scaffolding as well here. So let me...
And IntelliSense is all about me, but lazy coders like me, and just making sure that I have to do as little typing as possible.
Exactly.
So the more IntelliSense I get, the happier I am. And every version of Visual Studio just seems to kick up the IntelliSense another notch.
Yep.
Love it.
Okay. So let me actually start here. I'm going to come back to Visual Studio. And let me go in to Models here. And I'm going to create a real quick little class here. And let's go ahead and call this running path. I'm going to not call it route just to avoid a little bit of a who's on first, a little bit of a name clash issue there. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and say running path. And then let's go ahead and say add. And then let me, real quick, add in public int32 running path ID. And a get and a set. And let's say public, which is spelled like that, string. You know, when the typing ability goes, it just goes.
It does.
And then let's go ahead and say location with get and a set. And let's close all that off, public, string, and review, and then with a get and a set. Now, what I really want you to notice, frankly, is that there's not a whole lot that's fancy going on. Just a couple little
pretty
properties.
straightforward.
Yep. I do want to highlight the little ID there. That was done on purpose. That what I really want to do here is utilize code first entity framework, which I'm a huge fan of. Because what that allows you to do is it allows you to focus in on creating classes, which is what we're good at with developers, and not have to worry about actually creating the database behind the scenes, so that this will actually handle a lot of that for us. As we make changes, as you're working with Agile, it will actually then go in and start updating the database as well. Now, in the past, what I would normally have to do at this point, if I just wanted to do a very simple display here, where I am showing out all the running paths or giving me the ability to add them in, is I'd have to go in and create the data context, or then go in and create all the different views. Now, granted, yes, in prior versions of Visual Studio, I could take advantage of scaffolding, which would automatically generate some of the code for me. But I got to be honest with you here. I was never really a big fan of it, because it really didn't put things together into a way by default that I felt overly comfortable. That a lot of times I would go in, I would use the scaffolding, and then I would basically just remove everything and start all over again, which begs the question, why are you using scaffolding in the first place? So frankly, I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we've all run into that where, you see a new feature, you start working with it going, the stuff it's generating for me isn't quite the structure I was after, so now I find myself reworking it, and yes, then you get into that whole debate of, should I just write stuff from scratch?
Exactly. That's what I love now about the scaffolding that I have available with 2013. So if I come back over here to my controllers, and I right-click and I say Add, I'm going to choose a new scaffolded item. And so now it's going to ask me, okay, well, what would you like? And I'd say, well, I'd like an MVC5 controller with views using the entity framework. Okay, and hit Add. And now it's going to ask me, okay, well, what do you want this to be called? And let's go ahead and say running path there. There we go. I thought I hit my caps lock. And then you'll notice it'll ask me, okay, well, what model class do you want? Well, I'm going to drop this down, and I'm going to say, well, I want my running path. Now, I didn't create my data context yet. Again, for those of you not familiar with the entity framework, that data context is going to act as the go-between between your backend database and your code. So what you're going to notice is that this can actually generate that context for me right there. So all I have to do is just click that little button, choose whatever name it is that I want, and running MVC context, that'll work perfect. And let me go ahead and hit Add, and hit Add. And so now at this point, I relax, I break out my phone, I start checking Twitter, and let this do all the work for me. Because after all, and I know on some days this seems like an urban legend. Oh, that's cool. All right, let's rebuild here real quick. All right.
Only happens when you're doing demos live.
Absolutely. Take two, add running path, hit my drop down. Please don't tell me that you created it. You didn't. Okay, good. So let's take two there, hit add, and hit add.
So instant replay,
yes.
Back in time. So you were saying.
Yeah, so as I was saying, at this point now, I can go in and kind of, fire up Twitter or whatever it is that I want to do. And what's really nice is, this is finally realization of that dream that computers are supposed to make our lives easier. I know it doesn't always seem that way, but that's the whole goal. So what you're going to notice, what that did for me, first of all, let me, stay right there. Good. Zoom on in, extreme close-up. So right here, you're going to notice that it added in my controller.
Yep.
You're going to notice that it added in my context right here, so it created that for me. That way I didn't have to go in and do that. And it also set up all of my code right inside of here. So now I don't have to worry at all about my about all the initial code that has to be written. It's already got it all. So all I have to do now is just turn my attention to the views. So let's take a look at a view here. So what I'm going to do is open up my little running path views, and you'll notice, sure enough, it's got my create, my delete, my details, my edit, my index.
Wait, can you say that faster?
Probably. It's got them all right there.
Okay.
There we go. And you'll also notice is that if I open up index here, it's got my little loop. It's got everything set up as a table there. You'll notice if I open up, and this is actually one of the bigger ones, if I open up Create and I take a look at this, what I want you to notice is that it's now got my different little groups for all my different little items here, again, all based on Bootstrap.
Yep.
And unlike before, where it would have the label up top and then the text box below it, it actually now has label and then text box. It basically has everything built and set up the way that we would expect it, the way that we would want it. So let me go ahead and launch this here, Control F5. And this is going to take it a second here because it's going to set up my initial item. And you'll also notice in a moment here that it's going to create my, my location in my database. So let's go ahead and say, for example, Mission Bay. I live in San Diego. Mission Bay is one of my favorite little running spots.
Yep.
It's flat, gorgeous scenery. I think that's how you spell gorgeous. I'm a developer.
Right,
I don't have to spell correctly. I just have to spell consistently.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what IntelliSense is for.
Yep, exactly. We just need IntelliSense everywhere.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and create that. Hey, you're going to send information across the interwebs. Are you sure? Well, yes, I am. Now it's setting up my database for me, so this will, again, take it that moment. And once it's done, it will then bring me back to my little application. Give it just a second here. I promise it will. It's creating a database. It's doing a lot of work.
Databases do take a lot of work.
Yeah.
It would take me longer if I had to go create it myself.
Yeah, to actually get in all the ones and zeros.
Yes.
Yeah.
Manually.
Yeah, and then of course you transpose a 1 and a 0, and
then the whole database is
exactly.
just messed
That'd
up.
be the end of it. Okay, perfect. So now that we cut to me, it's done.
That's the best way to get your demo done.
Absolutely.
Switch the screen.
And so you'll notice that sure enough, it's created my my neat little item here. Now, I want to go back to this little, the little screen here, and you'll notice that there's my little button.
Yep.
And let's say I want to go in and I want to modify that little button there. I want to make it look a little bit better. So I'm going to come back over here to Visual Studio, and let's use the Create one. That works just fine. And you'll notice right here is my little input.
Yep.
And let's say I made a mistake and I deleted that.
Okay, so you've lost your style.
Exactly. Built into Bootstrap, there are roughly 14,863.
Roughly.
Roughly. Different classes. Here, I'll admit it. I'll make a confession. Okay, are we ready? Here we go. I admit it. I don't have every single class memorized for Bootstrap. There. I said it. Okay?
Okay, that's good.
All right. Now, fortunately, of course, A, I could always go look it up, or B, if we take a look at my code here, I can just go ahead and say class, and you'll notice that my IntelliSense works with Bootstrap. So I could go ahead and say, for example, BTN, and we could go ahead and say for my basic button, and then maybe BTN, and then let's go ahead and grab the danger one. There we go, just like that.
Wibble wobble.
There we go.
Nice obscure movie reference
Exactly.
for
there you go.
those who know you. Well done.
Thank you, thank you. And so now, let me go ahead and fire back up my my little create, and sure enough, you're going to notice that it's doing the red. It's doing the little warning there.
Nice.
Very cool. Let's also actually take this kind of one step further. Let me go back to the main index here, and once again, I'm just going to clobber everything. So this is the main index file, and I just got rid of everything. Now is the perfect time to panic.
I was going to say, this is when I want that big red button back.
Exactly. So now what you're going to notice is, again, I get the IntelliSense. So what I can do is I could say div, then class equals, and here is my, my Jumbotron. There we go. And then inside of here, I could go ahead and H2, geeks who run. By the way, I'm assuming you don't mind if I call you a geek.
I'm okay with being, given that my Twitter handle is Hockey Geek Girl, I think it's okay to refer to me as a geek. So
fair enough.
Keep going with that.
Okay. Okay, that's sort of an obscure reference to a a podcast that's no longer actually
I was
doing
going to
anything.
say, I don't even,
purely for
you
my
lost
own
me on that
entertainment.
reference,
Geeks
so
and-
well done.
Geeks
Very
with running
obscure.
shoes. It was
All right.
actually kind of neat, but in any event. All right. Now, one of the other challenges that we wind up running into is not just with Bootstrap, but with a lot of different libraries that are out there. Again, there's Knockout, there's AngularJS, there's all these different options that are available. And again, I'll admit it, I don't have everything memorized. I've got,
Let's be honest, programmers don't memorize those things.
Exactly.
Now,
so what you're going to notice is that if I right-click right here and I say Manage NuGet Packages, and let me go online here. Let me go grab Knockout. And let's go ahead and install this. For those of you not familiar with Knockout.js, what Knockout.js will do for you is make it a little bit easier to do data binding. So if you go in and maybe create a script section, so section, scripts, and let's go ahead and say script, and let me also make sure that I add in my reference to Knockout.js if I want this to work. I want scripts. Come here, Knockout. I'm so glad that you opened. There we go, Knockout.js. Okay, let's go back to my index page, and let's go ahead and just do a drag and a drop. We'll put that right there. That wasn't where I dragged you, but that's okay. There. Take 3. You. There.
there you go.
Beautiful. Okay. So now, let me go ahead and set up a very basic little script here. So we'll go ahead and say function members model, and let's go ahead and set this up with a this and members equals ko observable and 42. Now, for those of you not familiar with Knockout, what I've just done here is I've created a little object called members model. I added on a property called members, and I set the value to be 42. And in particular, I set that to be observable. So that way, if it changes from somewhere else, it'll automatically update on my screen. Cool. Problem. I don't necessarily remember how to do all the binding and everything else to go along with that. This is where Visual Studio comes into play. So if we come back in, and let's go in and say div, and let's go ahead and say class equals, and I want my column medium, and let's say I want 2 across. There we go. And let's go ahead and real quick add in a little div section, and let's say members online. And now, I just want to display this out inside of a strong section. And you'll notice that if I say data, and it's got my little dash, I've now got the ability, come here, let me just close that out, there we go. And now, data and bind. For some reason it's not coming up, but that's all right. So there's my little data bind, just because I want it to behave. It's not going to. So what I can go ahead and do is I can say text, and you'll notice that I am getting the IntelliSense inside of there, so it's picking up the property for my little strong, and then I could go ahead and say members model, just like that. Whoops, nope, that's not what I want. I'm sorry, I want simply members. And now, let me go ahead and run my little index page.
Chugga, chugga, chugga.
Chugga, chugga, chugga. Come around, come around, come around. And what do I not have? I've got text. I've got my members. That is my members. Oh, sorry.
That would help. There's always something.
There always is.
You do realize the number of mistakes you make in your code is directly proportional to the number of people
that are
watching
watching.
you type.
Yep.
That's right.
Why are you... It's still not data binding for me. That's lovely.
Do you want me to show something neat while you're sorting that out?
Go ahead and do that real quick.
Let me show. Let's pop over to me for a second. We'll give you a second to go poking through your code there. What I'd like to do is I'm going to show you a feature that has existed in Visual Studio 2013 for a lot of .NET development, but has recently just been updated for JavaScript. And it's a feature called Just My Code. And it's a really useful feature. A lot of times when we're working in our code, I've got a simple application here. I was running it earlier. I'll just show you how it works. So it's a little Windows 8 app, but it's written with HTML and JavaScript. So I'm still using HTML and JavaScript code, even though this particular one happens to be a Windows 8 application. And I can go in, I can open an image, select an image, and display it on the screen. Very simple little application there. Now what I can do is, if we go back to Visual Studio, is maybe I've got a problem in my code, so I set up a little breakpoint. Maybe when the file's getting picked, maybe I want to go step through my code and see the format of the file name coming back in my file picker because I want to make sure that it's being passed correctly and I'm setting my properties correctly. The kind of thing I would likely end up wanting to do. So I set up a breakpoint, and then what I'm going to do is I'm now going to run that same code. And what happens is I go to open an image, and of course, pop, to my breakpoint in the code. And what happens here, of course, you can see where I am in the code. And I, of course, most of us as developers, we just sort of go step into, step into, step into, step into to step through our code. How many times have you been caught with a situation where you get to a line of code, you hit step into, and you go, oh, shoot, that's like, it's like some JavaScript library. I did not want to go stepping into that JavaScript library. So it's one of those ones, you just want to step through your code, the code that you had written. Otherwise, you sort of get stuck in this, and you're having to go, oh, wait, I better do a step out to get back where I was. But if you step out too far, then you accidentally end up exiting and going back to the application again, and then you're having to rerun the whole scenario to get back to where you wanted in your code. So it can be really, really frustrating. So what we can do instead, so I'm just going to change a little option here, and I'm going to use that quick launch because I can never remember where my settings and things are stored. And I'm going to type in just my code. Now this did exist in the past for .NET. What's new is we have the ability to do this now for JavaScript as well. So I'm just going to click on this option, just my code, and you'll notice under Tools, Options, Debugging General, I can enable just my code. And what happens now is when I run this exact same application again, breakpoint at exactly the same line of code, I go ahead, I find an image to open, and right away it takes me back to my breakpoint. But what's awesome this time is when I hit step into, instead of stepping into that actual function, it just steps to the next line of code. Ha! And this, just because of the way things are going, it's crashing my code. Because that's the way today's going to go. But it said, so what just my code does is it simply says, don't step into that specific library, stay just stepping through my code. Though I will say I have run into a few situations where it still steps into system code, it seems like, occasionally. But I find 90% of the time it does just stick straight to walking through my code. Are you ready to go back?
Yeah, now I'm ready.
All right,
my problem was, and this is just something that happens. A couple of people in the chat window picked up on it. If you kick back to my little screen here, my focus was up here. I thought I'd made my typo up here. Actually, this is just one of those where I wound up moving too fast, and I'd forgotten to apply the bindings.
I didn't do it.
Hey, every time. But that's okay, because here's what we're going to do is we're going to actually use this as our next demo point. So you'll notice right up top here that there's that little refresh button. And this is where that linking comes into play. Now, all that I did here was I just simply hit Control F5 to launch the item. So I didn't do anything fancy. If I bring up my browser link dashboard, what you're going to notice is that it's actually picking up every single copy of Internet Explorer. And in fact, here, let's do this. I was using the snap feature. Windows 7 was my idea. I loved those commercials.
Yes, they were great.
So let me go ahead and put that right over there. Where is the other one here? And actually, that'll be perfect. Let's go ahead and slide that.
You got two different windows going
right
there.
Over here. There we go.
Yep.
And so now, what I'm going to do for starters, let me just get rid of that, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fix my code. So it's simply ko apply bindings, and then that gets me every single time. Apply bindings tab. There we go. And new and members model. Okay, there we go. So now I just go ahead and I do that, and I'm going to hit my little refresh. And now what you're going to notice is that both of those windows have been updated in one fell swoop. So very easy for me to go in and now refresh multiple browsers in just one shot. I love it.
Sweet.
Yep. Okay. So let's get back to our slide.